Let me introduce my happy family. This is my wife and Harold Jr., 16 months old, Eugene, 11 years, Helen, 13, Betty, 9. And this is Robert. Robert is 7 feet 10 inches tall.
Robert Wadlow obliterates our height standards today. When Robert came out of the womb, nobody expected a thing. He was a healthy, happy baby. But by the time he was 5 years old, Robert measured 5 foot 6 inches tall. Kinda getting close to my height, but not there. And when he turns 8, he was already taller than his father at over 6 feet. 6 feet, what we consider today the peak male height, except 6 feet is not the peak. Robert continued to grow, and by the time he was 12 years old, he was already over 7 feet tall. He was officially diagnosed with pituitary gigantism, which is a disorder where his overdeveloped pituitary gland caused him to grow without stopping. I was kind of a fool. I thought, well, 7 feet isn't really too far off from the average height of between 5 and 6 feet, right? It's not that big of a deal. Until I saw video footage of Robert, and the difference is insane. The dude was absolutely massive.
I'm Robert Wadlow, 7 feet tall, 12 years old, and I weigh 240 pounds. These boys grouped around me go the same grade as I am, and they're about the same age as I am.
Something you might notice in these videos of Robert playing basketball is that he was extremely gentle for his size. He wasn't knocking people over. He wasn't getting up in people's faces like a dog. He was very humble. He was bashful and aware of his height, and everyone who knew him described him as a gentle giant, like a BFG. This personality of his shaped his very short career, which we'll get into soon, but for now, everywhere he went brought him new challenges. Robert was the tallest ever Boy Scout. He had to have his own customized tent and his own sleeping bag. Chairs had to be made for Robert's comfort. Doors or walkways were never tall enough, and his father had to modify the family car so he could actually sit in it. His hands were massive. They measured over a foot in size. They were larger than dinner plates, which you could probably imagine made everything in life that much more difficult. He would have a very hard time with a smartphone. Robert had to have 8,000 calories a day to maintain his nutrition, 4 times what the average man requires, but only half the amount of what a Redditor eats in a day. Later in his life, as Robert continued to grow, his legs grew weaker, and making things harder, he refused to use a wheelchair. He claimed he would rather hold on to his dignity by standing, and because of this, he had to use special braces and a walking cane to move around most of his life. But as difficult as this already sounds, it only got worse. Robert became a national figure. Reporters, film producers, and story writers across the nation wanted to interview him or to put him on display as some sort of freak. Because of this, strangers would creep up on him and kick him in the legs to see if he was the real deal or if he was just using stilts. This was all happening to him as a kid. When he graduated high school, he was the height of 8'4", and he was offered to join the Ringling Brothers Circus for a promotional tour. But in contrast to other performers at the time, Robert refused to be displayed as a freak. They often requested that he wore a top hat and tails, while he insisted on wearing his everyday custom suits. But Robert faced a struggle throughout his life that most people wouldn't immediately think of. A big man with big legs must have big feet, right? And in the 1930s, big, never-seen-before shoes were not all that common. Because of this, Robert began a long-term partnership with the International Shoe Company, which provided him with free custom-made 37 AA shoes. Each pair of shoe cost about $100. Adjusted for inflation today, that would have been $1,700 for a pair of shoes. And it didn't come with a FOMO brand logo to make it look cheap. And continuing on the topic of custom-made clothing, I'm not making this up, but Robert was a proud member of the Freemasons. He was actually not only that, but a master mason, belonging to the Order of the Mole. Because of his size, the Freemasons had to make him custom uniforms that were never made before, and they ended up gifting him his most prized possession, a size 25 Masonic ring. This is not speculation, as the Freemasons attended his funeral and honored him as a brother, which unfortunately his funeral came all too soon. A problem that Robert had, as I mentioned earlier, was his feet. He was a generally healthy man, considering his condition, but he couldn't feel his feet. They had little to no sensation. In July of 1940, Robert was on tour at a festival when a faulty leg brace was rubbing against his ankle. This left a gnarly blister, but of course he could not feel it, so he did not find out until later when it was too late. The blister was severely infected. Robert was operated on in a hotel room because there were no beds big enough in the hospital. That's because they didn't invent fat people yet. They performed minor surgery on him and several blood transfusions, but no matter what they did, his fever was still at 106 degrees. He passed away in the middle of the night, July 15th of 1940, at 22 years old. He died peacefully but extremely young. The last time he was officially measured before death, he was at 8 feet and 11.1 inches tall, and currently he still holds the Guinness World Record. 40,000 people attended his funeral. It was a mass event. He was known nationwide. His coffin weighed over 1,000 pounds and required over 15 men to carry it. Interestingly enough, his family destroyed most of his belongings because they feared that collectors would try to scalp them or use them for some sort of freak show display. In doing so, they meant to protect his legacy, a legacy that was created by arguably one decision. Because when Robert was diagnosed back at the age of 12, he was met with a decision at the hospital. They offered him surgery to cure his condition, to stop his growth, but it was extremely risky, and even the doctors were afraid to do this. Keep in mind, this would have been about 1930. Brain surgery was still really young back then, and Robert and his family did not want to risk the operation that could have taken his life. And it's because of this decision that he may remain as the world's tallest man, at least for a very long time. Because since 1930, treatment options for pituitary gigantism have come a long way, and the disorder is now treated safely at a very young age. It's quite possible someone will someday pass Robert's height, but it's far more likely a patient would choose to live a longer life, a life without constant struggle of being too huge. So as it stands, Robert Wadlow, at 8 feet and 11 inches tall, is the tallest man in documented history. And he did this with no vantage points, no surgery, and no ego. He was just one kid, the size of two, who died with so much left in store.